In 5th edition, Dark Sun is going to be shrink wrapped with a mature warning. But I mean, Dark Sun's always been mature, right? We've had some great discussions on my Discord server where we talk about the mature flag that is going to come out for Dark Sun in 5th edition. And folks who didn't super know the setting well, or who just remembered it a certain way, were saying, yeah, it's always been super, super mature. And I thought to myself, I don't know that that's super true. Like, there have for sure been topics. If you saw my last video on the 10 things that define Dark Sun, there are certainly things in there that cause you to think like, okay, genocide, that's rough. Like, how do I want to handle this? But when you look at this box set over my shoulder, it doesn't actually have a lot of that in there. That stuff is slowly revealed across settings or novels, and the average campaign won't actually stumble into those things except in very small amounts, and it's probably going to be a background thing rather than an active thing. There are a couple of things that are for sure front and center, bioessentialism, for example, and others that can require that. But I was really, and in this video, I'm going to focus on the fact that the art was often seen as something that was very violent, brutal, like Dark Sun's setting, and nudity. And I thought to myself, I don't remember that. So I went and looked, and I shared with our Discord server the raciest, this should have been the thumbnail, the raciest Dark Sun art you can imagine from the original box set. And just to make sure, I went and got the raciest and most violent art from the revised box set as well. So shield your eyes. No, actually, you don't even need to get your kids out of the room unless they are like so incredibly young. Let's take a look. So the first piece of art is some of the raciest you're going to see. Are you ready for it in today's modern context? Yeah, so we've got a gladiator who appears, and it's cool, right? This is art by Brahm, famous artist who also did a lot of the major pieces for Dark Sun, as well as a lot of and the color major pieces, but also did a lot of the black and white. Bax also did a number, and we can see the broken sword. Cool, a lot of mood there. We've got the kind of like those leg guards that are made of chitin or bone or something like that, but it looks like chitin, like some sort of insectoid piece. Some sandals, a band around her thigh. But, honestly, that outfit is sort of leotardish, right? It's really not that different than, I don't know, like a Jane Fonda video or something like that. Cool. Also, I would note that she's buff. Like, this is not some vulnerable woman who's begging for you to rescue her in some weird, tired trope way. Like, this is a person that can lift me and throw me, right? And looks pretty cool, like looks pretty metal, right? And in fact, if you look at the very next piece of art on the opposing page, right? You flip the page and you're going to find what I'd say is pretty equivalent art. Like, look at this guy, right? The mole is shown as just these bulging muscles, like unbelievable abs that are pretty much impossible. It's all muscle everywhere. The legs, is he even wearing a loincloth? It might just be like this little skin flap on the back and front. And that's all we got, right? And so I don't know, is this racy? You can decide. I mean, this is a desert, right? We see the cacti and all that. They're going for this feel of heat. Now, we know that in real life, like, you don't walk across desert sands wearing a loincloth because your whole body will be sunburned, right? But back then, I don't know that we all knew that. And also, the fiction of it made sense, right? The fiction of it's hot, so I'm wearing very little makes some sense, right? Because we're all used to being around the pool and things like that because we only do it for a couple hours, not every day on hot Athasian sands. But it at least makes some sense. And in this third picture, you can see here under the warrior classes descriptions, they've kind of got this scene from a gladiator combat, and you can see again, she's wearing a kind of skimpy top, but it also has like serrated teeth on the edge, and so this is as bad as a bathing suit. And she also looks really tough, right? She looks like she is ready to defend herself as the guy behind her, right? Who is also, not wearing all that much, right? I mean, he does have a little bit more. So we could maybe say there's some bias here, but again, is this racy? I wouldn't say so. And I would say, looking at this fourth picture, to me, this is just as cool as those others and just as informative, and in a different style, right? Like, obviously there's a lot of cleavage here, but the pants are cool. It's got this neat kind of punk vibe. And I think she's supposed to be an illusionist, or at least it's matched up with the illusionist art. And Bax is, drawing this cool character, weaving things out of the ground. Not racy, even if maybe it's sort of like, supposed to be an attractive person. There's so much more that carries the art here than something like that. And I think in all those pieces, it's true as well. So those were, honestly, the raciest pieces of art I could find in all of the first box set that came out for second edition. But what about violence? We know Athos is brutal. So what do we have? All I could find was this piece. I don't know that the gladiator there looks like Ricus maybe it's supposed to be, or maybe it's just an offshoot, or maybe the artist didn't super get a brief of what was going on. It doesn't look to me at all like Ricus, but maybe Ricus hadn't been described back then. But anyway, it's a gladiator who is using a spear to get what looks to be like a king, or at least some other noble, out of the stand. So it's probably supposed to be the killing of King Calic in Tyr, and that's probably supposed to be Ricus. And that's, relatively gory, right? He's got like 2 wounds cut up. There's a dead guy next to him with blood. And of course, that big spear kind of going into the chest of the king. But I don't know that this is gory, right? It's by today's standards certainly tame, but I think even back then it was pretty tame. It's pretty restrained. This is absolutely the most, by far, violent art I could find, actually, in either the second edition box set, the first one, or the revised second edition box set. But let's show some art from that second edition revised box set. We can see here, this is art with some Thri-kreen. They're killing Terax, I think. And then sitting on the throne is this sort of dark-looking woman. And she's clearly, all tons of legs. But she's also looking kind of villainish here. It's hard to tell exactly what this is going on. And then there's another picture that seems to show probably the same person, or at least a very similar outfit by the same artist. And we can see, again, here she is with tons of leg, and she's got sort of a cape. So there's some modesty there, right? We're not seeing what the underwear looks like. They've got, I don't know, like it's very reasonable. And then we've got the giant is not, super wearing a lot of clothing, nor is this other person that's to the left of the giant. So, this is as racy as it got in the second box set we got for Dark Sun. I did go and I looked through a bunch of other source books. I can't say that I went through every, Dark Sun thing, because I honestly thought I remembered some Dark Sun art that had like, some naked breast or something like that. But paging through a number of these source books from the second edition era, I could not find anything that actually showed that. It was all like this or tamer, very similar to what you've seen so far. And, I'll note that below me, you can see the art. And you saw before art from both the altered edition Player's Handbook, which was the first piece of art, and then the gameplay cover, or actually, no, that was the setting book before, and now the gameplay cover. I can even put the alternate Player's Handbook. But you can see that, this gameplay cover, there's a lot of blood, right? Like all over the place. And certainly there's art like the famous picture of, Gladiator kind of fighting and this mass of people. Sure. But do we need a shrink wrap around that? And no, definitely not that, right? Now, I'm not saying this requires a mature flag, but we can look at older art and see, for example, here's a cover of The Duchy of Ten, a Blackmore adventure. And, similar sort of a leotardy kind of, it's like I'm wearing underwear, but somehow it's attached to a shirt. God knows how that works kind of thing. And all the pirates are wearing a lot of clothing. And I would say this is a lot more gratuitous, right? Like there isn't a reason why she's wearing this outfit other than inspire feelings to the viewer, presumably male. The pirates are just like normal pirates. So what's going on? Hard to say why. And then similarly, and I own this one, and so here it is, in my little plastic bag. Dubious. You can decide whether you like the quality of this thing or not, but the art is very interesting. Even more interesting to me is unsung heroes. And this, from afar, looks like she's naked. But I'll show you the actual art. But unsung heroes. I don't know what's going on here, right? Like, here are the two guys wearing like armor that, according to D&D, is perfectly reasonable to be like totally like protected and do whatever it is, attacking or defending this place. What does she do? Like, what's that weird like cotton ball under? Like, what is happening, right? And no way that's not chafing, right? So, that to me, again, I'm not saying it needs shrink wrap, but if you're going to talk about racy, it wasn't Dark Sun. And my favorite cover of all time, this might have been the excuse for me making this video. If you say that it was, I'm not going to deny it, is to share the cover of The Immortal Storm. I Am One. This adventure has all kinds of things. You go to real world Chicago. That is the biggest stunning thing here, but also is, what is this cover? Right? I guess because you're immortal now, because you're playing the basic game, you've reached immortal levels, you can walk through a pool of lava. But if you were going to walk through a pool of lava, would you wear this? Yeah, we do get a guy who's also, two guys who are skimpily clad. So I guess it's equal here, but nobody's wearing appropriate clothing. Again, doesn't require a mature stick or anything like that. But to me, that's racy art, right? What I saw for Dark Sun, looking through the books, looking through the entire course, two box sets, I don't see it, right? The fact that I didn't see violent or nudity, scattered throughout the second edition box sets, and they're certainly, by the way, not in the fourth edition or third edition. The fact that that wasn't there doesn't mean the game doesn't deserve some sort of maturity or whatever, but it'll be for a different reason, right? It'll be for some other reason, or because this edition has chosen to do these things. But I wanted to make this video because it's really easy for folks to just sort of nostalgically remember Dark Sun was brutal. Therefore, it must have had nudity. It must have had just gore and like really like shocking art. It did not. Gentle reader, it did not. And so it's good to know that, right? To at least have your basis down. Again, there can be many reasons why we're gonna, in 5th edition, flag it that way. We'll have to see what they are, including marketing. That's maybe okay if it gets enough people in love with Dark Sun. I'll take marketing as a viable answer. That's okay with me. We'll have to see. When I look at 2E, Dark Sun's art, and 4th edition, and the little bit that we had for 3rd, I think it's actually really cool art. And that is the last thing I'll leave you with as a thought is, what does it mean for Dark Sun to be a brutal setting? Does it mean the art is full of gore, splattering blood everywhere? Is it a Tarantino type approach? I would say Dark Sun's reputation for brutality is on theme. It's on the way things were described, telling us this was a harsh world. Were the encounters substantially harder than others? I mean, maybe a little bit in 2nd edition. Like, I will say more characters died in my Dark Sun campaign than in others. But that all could have also been me feeding off of the edition and how it spoke. And I'll just go back to, I think what made Dark Sun brutal is how it was described, how it was set up, and how we bought into it. It wasn't because there was gore or because there was extreme art or nudity or anything like that. And it wasn't even for the concepts that were in there that you might flag as mature. I think it was because we said it to each other. We said it was brutal. And then we proceeded to show that in the adventures, in the scenes, right? What we did is say, any trip across the wastes, probably something's going to happen. Any trip to an oasis, probably something's going to happen. Hey, does that look like there's food growing there, like plants that you can go and eat? Probably something's going to attack you. Horribly, right? And unexpectedly, surprising you. Maybe it'll have tentacles. Maybe it'll open a mouth. Maybe it's the bones that are scattered around it that'll crawl up and get you. You have no idea. It's Dark Sun, right? It could be a Venus flytrap or something, or it has zombies at its command. And it's a plant, right? You find a hole and it's full of wasps and they sting you. Like it's just that kind of world where things would come at you. But the rules were the rules. And the book was a book within the second issue time frame, which was after the Satanic Panic and responding to it, right? So the game brutality, maturity, I would argue, comes from how you set up the game. You're the one who get to decide how to do that. Collectively, we all do that as well, right? We all collectively told each other Dark Sun was a super brutal setting. And sure, because we did that. We did that, and you can do that or not do it. It's up to you. But again, I'm excited. I can't wait to see 5th edition. We'll see what that maturity gets us. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's positive and fun. We can see. I do want to, I said last thought, but I have one more last thought that just occurred to me, which is I was reading today a blog by Patchwork Paladin, and she did a review of the adventure Dark of Hot Spring Island. And that, if you go look at Patchwork Paladin's blog about it, it really captures why that is what I would say could use a mature warning on it because of the concepts that are in there, the types of stories it chose to say, which can be very problematic. And I think Patchwork did a nice job of sort of saying like, hey, you don't need to do this, right? Like you don't need to define everything as one gender is always suffering in these scenarios. The other one is always exploiting, right? When you do that, if for some reason you think that's fun, like you should flag it and probably should flag it anyway, or tone it down or make it equal, right? Those to me are things that we have to wrestle with as a society and are mature. And I wouldn't want a kid running that adventure. You can disagree. Yeah, everybody parents differently, But to me, that is where you get into that maturity. And again, Dark Sun did not need that, right? It did fine on what I think is actually a very good treatment of both genders being equally leotardish or loinclothish or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it made you think, maybe reset your nostalgia to what the level of how we came up with brutal and violent art or scantily clad, maybe that helped kind of reset it to where it was. But if you find super racy or super violent stuff in Dark Sun original art, I'd be curious to see it. Share it on the Discord or wherever, link on this video. Thanks so much. Thanks to the folks who are on that Discord that come up with these great discussions. And thank you for everybody who supports me on Patreon. I'll see you next time.